How can you tell the difference between self-harm and suicidal behaviors? I'm going to share that with you today. Hey, I'm Mallory. I'm a teen mental health therapist and I love making these videos just for teens. Today, I'm going to be sharing with you how to tell the difference between self-harm and suicidal behaviors in teenagers. It can be really scary when you find out that a teenager is self-harming. We know the rates for self-harm and suicidal behaviors are rising in teens. Just because a teenager self-harms does not mean that they're suicidal. Let's start with the basics. Self-harming behaviors are any type of behavior where you are intentionally inflicting an injury on yourself. Suicidal behaviors, on the other hand, are any intentional act or behavior that could either lead to death or the potential for death at one's own hands. Now, a lot of people usually think about cutting when they hear about self-harm behaviors. It's probably one of the most talked about forms of self-harm, but there are different ways that people can injure themselves too. If you are concerned about yourself or someone you know struggling with urges or thoughts to hurt themselves or other people, please reach out to a local mental health professional for support. We are here to help. And if you're in the United States, you can text the crisis text line at 741-741 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That means anytime. Here's where things can get a little confusing. The actual behavior itself can look like self-harm or suicidal behavior depending on what the intention was. And then there's a whole subset of people who engage in suicidal behavior never intending to actually die by suicide. That's because usually when you're thinking about or acting on suicidal urges or thoughts, you're not in your full logical, reasonable mind. So in that moment, you might not totally be fully aware or realize the potential permanent consequence of those actions. If you know anybody who is considering or talking about hurting or killing themselves, please link them up with mental health support. In the United States, you can contact the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255. The reasons that teenagers engage in self-harm or suicidal behaviors can be quite varied. So a common misconception that I hear all the time is that they're doing it for attention. I have no idea when wanting attention got such a bad rap. I don't know about you, but I love care and attention from the people who I love. I think it makes sense. We need attention from one another. Whenever I hear somebody say that somebody is doing or engaging in harmful behavior because they are seeking attention, I really encourage them to reframe it and think about it a little bit differently. Instead of saying they are seeking attention, I like to say they are seeking connection, because that's really what it's all about. Now, that being said, I am not endorsing that engaging in self-harm or suicidal behavior is a healthy way of getting attention from our loved ones. It's really important to remember that teenagers are in a time of their lives where you guys are all trying to figure out all this stuff. You might not have the skill set or the knowledge or awareness on how to get that care and attention in a healthy way. And that's where seeing a therapist can really help. During the teen years, you are experiencing so many new, intense experiences that whether they are emotional, physical, social, oh man, the list goes on, that it can be really overwhelming to know how to identify and navigate those new experiences in healthy ways. And just like we all have preferences or tolerances for really warm or really cool weather, we all have different preferences and tolerances for the intensity of our emotional experiences. So for some people, when the intensity of an uncomfortable emotion is too extreme or too overwhelming, they just want it to end. They just want it to be done with. They just need it to be over. When teenagers self-harm, it's usually because it's the only way that they have found to be effective in relieving that pain so far. I will tell you, as a therapist, I'm not going to lie to you, it takes a little bit of work, but there are so many other healthy strategies that you may not even be aware of. We know tons of them. I have lots of videos about them. You can check them out. But in the meantime, please link up to a mental health therapist and we can help you out with that. When teenagers engage in suicidal behavior, it's usually because they think it's the only way. They have to end it. It's an escape. They don't realize that things can change. So with self-harm, usually the driving factor is feeling guilty or an overwhelming sense of responsibility. And so the only way to get that relief is either engaging that self-harm because it's a compulsion in the sense of you will not get relief until you engage in that behavior, or you feel so guilty and so responsible that the only way to feel better is by punishing yourself. Now, of course, this is not rational. I'm not saying that it is, but it is something that drives some of these self-destructive behaviors. When it comes to suicidal behaviors in teenagers, they feel stuck. They feel hopeless. They cannot see or even recognize that things can and will change over time. Another big driving force for suicidal behavior is feeling like a burden. So if you start hearing a teenager talk about these sort of things, you really need to link them up with help right away. It is well known that teenagers tend to be more impulsive, reactive, and have a higher tolerance for risky behavior. That's because you're going through so many new and intense emotional experiences that if you didn't take some risk in that, you wouldn't be willing to try new things and stretch your comfort zone. That being said, that means that this age group is really risky when it comes to any sort of dangerous behavior. As a teenager, you're in a period of your life where you're trying to be independent and your own person and still navigate needing to rely on others for support. And here's the thing, as a teenager, you all really love to rely on each other for support, but that can be really risky. You all are going through so many changes all at the same time, and you're all at different levels. And this is all happening when you're all still developing and forming that logical, rational part of your brain right here, and developing your life experiences so you have a frame of reference for what works and what doesn't. As a teenager, you are not expected to know everything. That being said, reaching out to a safe, responsible adult when you know that another teenager is suffering and hurting, it's probably one of the most adult things that you can do. We know that it's important to reach out and ask for help from the appropriate people. So use us. Somebody like a therapist, a school social worker, or even a trusted coach or parent are all examples of safe, responsible adults. If you think you or someone may be struggling with any sort of self-harm or suicidal behaviors, please watch the video on your screen right now where I'm sharing all about how you can talk to your parents about this stuff. And please make sure you share this video because you never know who it could help. Thanks for watching.